You introduce yourself with two names, a first one that's yours alone, and a second one that belonged to people you never met. Your last name outlived the ones who first carried it. It will likely outlive you too. You've probably never questioned why that second name exists at all. It just does. It's on your documents, your mailbox, your family photos. But somewhere back in deep prehistory, before writing, before agriculture, before permanent settlements, someone had to decide that a name should travel beyond a single person and attach itself to an entire bloodline. Why would anyone bother? To understand that, you have to picture life before names traveled at all. In the earliest human groups, a name likely marked just one person. Simple, immediate, useful only within a small band where everyone already knew everyone. You didn't need a surname in a group of 30 people. You needed one name, and everyone's memory did the rest. So what changed? Groups got bigger. Groups started meeting other groups. And suddenly, knowing someone's face wasn't enough anymore. The evolutionary biologist W.D. Hamilton offered a framework that helps explain why this mattered so much. Hamilton's research on kin selection showed that humans, like many social animals, are wired to favor relatives, even distant ones, because helping a relative survive still helps your own genetic line continue. But here's the catch. That instinct only works if you can actually identify who counts as kin. A stranger who shares your blood is invisible to you unless something marks the connection. That's the gap a family name quietly fills. Think about what happens when two unrelated bands cross paths on unfamiliar land. Do you fight? Do you trade? Do you intermarry? Every one of those decisions gets easier and safer if you can instantly tell who is connected to whom. A shared name became a kind of shortcut, a signal broadcast before a single word of negotiation ever happened. The anthropologist Robin Fox spent decades studying kinship systems across cultures and found something remarkably consistent. Nearly every human society, no matter how isolated or how ancient its roots, developed some structured way of tracking lineage. Fox argued that kinship terminology isn't just social decoration, it's practical infrastructure, telling people instantly who they owe loyalty to, who they can marry, who they can trust with resources during hard times. Without that structure, every interaction between strangers would have to be renegotiated from zero. With it, an entire set of obligations and alliances arrives the moment two people simply say their names. Now, picture the stakes involved. In a world with no police, no courts, no written contracts, your survival depended almost entirely on who would defend you if something went wrong. A name that carried your lineage attached to it wasn't just identity, it was insurance. If your grandfather had earned respect, or forged an alliance, or proven himself trustworthy in trade, that reputation didn't have to start over with you. It traveled forward, folded into the name itself. This is where things get interesting, because family names didn't emerge everywhere the same way, or for the same reasons. In some early societies, names attached to occupation. A family known for working metal became known by a word meaning smith. A family known for milling grain became known by a word meaning miller. The name wasn't just an identifier, it was a resume, inherited before you ever lifted a tool yourself. In others, names attached to place. Living near a particular river, hill, or forest edge became part of who you were, long after your family might have moved elsewhere. And in others still, names attached directly to an ancestor, son of a particular founder, repeated generation after generation, until the ancestor's name effectively became the family's permanent brand. The genealogist and historian George Redmonds spent much of his career tracing exactly how hereditary surnames spread through medieval England, using combinations of historical records and, more recently, DNA analysis. Redmonds found that many surnames, especially occupational and locational ones, solidified into permanent, inherited family names roughly between the 11th and 14th centuries, as populations grew large enough that first names alone could no longer reliably distinguish one person from another in growing towns and expanding trade networks. That detail matters more than it first seems. Surnames didn't appear because people suddenly cared more about family. They appeared because population density demanded a solution. When everyone in a village might share the same handful of common first names, something extra had to break the tie. So a name that once existed purely for your own group's convenience became something else entirely. It became a tool for strangers to understand you before you'd said a single word about yourself. Here's the twist worth sitting with for a second. The very same instinct that once helped a small band of early humans figure out who to trust on unfamiliar ground is still running in your head today. Think about how quickly a shared last name changes how you treat someone you've just met. A random shared surname at a conference. A distant cousin discovered through a genealogy website. Something in you responds differently the moment a name connects you to someone, even loosely, even if you've never spoken before. That response isn't modern politeness. It's ancient kin recognition, repurposed for a world of strangers who happen to share a label. Modern genealogy has actually made this instinct more visible than ever. Consumer DNA testing has let millions of people discover relatives they never knew existed, sometimes across continents. Based purely on a shared genetic signature their family name had long since lost track of. People report an almost automatic pull toward these newly discovered relatives, a warmth that logic alone doesn't fully explain. You are, in that moment, running the exact same ancient calculation your ancestors ran on unfamiliar ground thousands of years ago. Kin or not kin, trust or caution. Now think about your own last name again, the one you write without thinking, the one on forms and packages and school records. It carries centuries of decisions inside it. Maybe an ancestor who worked a particular trade, maybe a hillside your family lived beside for generations, maybe simply the name of someone whose reputation was worth preserving, passed down until it became yours by default. You didn't choose it, it chose you, the same way it chose everyone who carried it before you. Stretching back to a moment when a group of early humans first realized that a name could do something a face alone never could. It could travel. It could vouch for you before you ever arrived. It could tell a stranger instantly who you belong to. You introduce yourself with two names, one that's entirely yours, and one that belonged to people you never met, doing exactly the job it was built to do, tens of thousands of years after someone first decided a name shouldn't die with the person who carried it.